At 3:40 a.m. local time, an American maintenance crew at Camp Buehring in northwestern Kuwait was pulling a turbine engine from an AH-64 Apache. It was routine work on a night when the war had not yet reached that slice of desert. No one on the base knew that a salvo of Iranian ballistic missiles, launched 8 minutes earlier, was now screaming down through its terminal arc at 3 times the speed of sound, heading straight for the helicopter flight line below. 1 minute later, the alarm blared across Camp Buehring and soldiers scrambled from their barracks toward concrete bunkers in whatever they happened to be wearing. On the perimeter, a Patriot battery's ANM-PQ-65 radar had painted 5 ballistic contacts on a southeastern bearing, descending fast. The Patriot's computers selected the most dangerous tracks and began launching PAC-3 MSE interceptors in pairs, each one trailing white exhaust that lit the desert floor like a strobe. The PAC-3 MSE interceptors closed on the inbound warheads at combined speeds exceeding Mach 6, each one steering itself into the target using an active Ka-band seeker and 180 attitude control motors. A PAC-3 carries no explosive warhead. At that closing speed, the missile body itself becomes the warhead. It is like swatting a baseball out of the air with another baseball, both thrown by major league pitchers, except both baseballs are moving at 4,000 miles per hour. 2 objects meet, neither survives, and the debris rains down as dust. Tonight, the system succeeded against 3 of the 5 inbound warheads. 2 remained inbound as the radar fought to locate them. 3 of the 5 ballistic warheads were destroyed in under 40 seconds at Mach 6 closure speeds, in complete darkness, against targets that had only 8 minutes of warning. The crew on that Patriot battery did everything the system was designed to do. What was about to hit Camp Buehring was not a failure of the crew. It was a failure of geometry, and the Iranians had built their entire attack plan around exactly that gap. If you look at the Patriot's ANM-PQ-65 radar face, you see something no other air defense system in the world can do. It searches for targets, tracks them, and guides interceptors all from a single phased array antenna. The radar scans a 90-degree sector of sky, prioritizing contacts by trajectory and speed. Think of it like a security camera bolted to one wall of your house. It covers the front door perfectly, but if someone slips in through the back window, the camera isn't even pointed that way. While the engagement control station was locked on those ballistic tracks, processing power maxed, and the radar sector remained firmly aimed southeast, something else had been approaching from a completely different direction for the past 40 minutes. 3 Shahed 1, 3, 6. One-way attack drones had launched from forward positions closer to the Iranian coast, cruising in from the south at barely 100 feet of altitude. On the nose of each Shahed sat a commercial GPS receiver, the same chip that guides your phone's map app, steering 40 pounds of explosive to pre-programmed coordinates at 100 knots. The wingspan was under 3.5 meters, and the radar cross-section was about the size of a large bird. Against a Patriot radar optimized to scan upward for ballistic arcs, a signature at 100 feet altitude is like trying to hear your child sneaking cookies from the kitchen while your spouse vacuums next to your head. The Patriot was not incompetent. It was staring at the front door while the drone slipped through the basement window. Each Shahed cost about $30,000 per airframe, while each PAC-3 interceptor it flew past cost about $4 million. Iran had done the math. The first Fateh warhead struck the helicopter maintenance area at 3:42 a.m., and the overpressure hit before the sound did. The blast shredded 2 Apache fuselages on the flight line and collapsed the section of the hangar where a crew had been pulling an engine 90 seconds earlier. The second warhead hit the fuel depot. Jet fuel does not explode the way you might think. It blooms, a rolling orange fireball expanding outward faster than a man can run, followed by a black column of smoke punching through the pre-dawn sky that would be visible from 30 miles in every direction. When the drones arrived, the Shahed that hit the base command building at 3:43 a.m. detonated inside the operations center, cutting the base's coordination nerve in a single strike. Camp Buehring was burning. The helicopter flight line that had been servicing Apaches and Black Hawks for 8 straight days of combat operations was now fully engulfed. 400 miles southeast of Iran's Gulf Coast, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy battery commander, who ordered the launch, received confirmation via encrypted relay and allowed himself 3 seconds of satisfaction before ordering his crew to collapse the Fateh 1-10 transporter erector launcher and start driving north immediately. Standard IRGC doctrine gives the crew 20 minutes to break down the launcher and disappear before American intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance can pinpoint the firing position. They just weren't counting on what came next. Ahmed al-Jabr Airbase sits in the Kuwaiti desert. For 8 days, F-15E Strike Eagles have been flying combat sorties into Iran from this runway, hammering IRGC installations along the coast. Tonight, Camp Buehring's fires were visible as an orange glow on the northern horizon. Somebody owed the army a receipt. 4 Strike Eagles, call signs Rage 01 through Rage 04, sat on the ramp loaded for exactly this kind of mission. GBU-31 Joint Direct Attack munitions hung from the centerline stations, and the GBU-39 small-diameter bombs lined the wing racks. Roughly 92,000 pounds of precision-guided ordnance were spread across the 4 jets. The F-15E Strike Eagle, Boeing's 2-seat deep strike variant of the most successful air superiority fighter America ever built, is powered by twin Pratt & Whitney F-100 engines, producing 29,000 pounds of thrust each. It can reach a top speed of Mach 2.5 at altitude, with a combat radius of over 1,000 miles using external fuel. Its maximum weapons load is 23,000 pounds across 11 hardpoints. It was designed during the Cold War to fly deep into Soviet territory and destroy things that were not supposed to survive. Tonight, it was doing exactly that, just with better GPS and a grudge. That amount of ordnance is enough to remodel every building on the target list and still have leftovers. Like showing up to a potluck with 4 crockpots because your spouse said, "Bring something small." All 4 Strike Eagles hit the pavement with afterburners lit. Iran had just struck an American base. It had forced American soldiers into concrete bunkers in their own pajamas. It had set American helicopters and American hardware, paid for by American taxpayers, on fire in the desert. Somewhere on that ramp, someone in a flight suit decided that was enough. Each pair of F-100 engines shoved 58,000 pounds of thrust through the desert night, the kind of sound that doesn't ask permission. Orange exhaust cones tore 50 feet into the darkness. The desert floor shook. 4 jets climbed hard, heading northeast, loaded with enough precision-guided ordnance to make sure Iran remembered this night for a very long time. "You want to hit our base?" "Repraxis." Warnsost Shahed, Kantitrashibishu. Dachachinsa Santrain. Grade Shane Tower, Batorasai. Fine, we know exactly where you parked. Wheels up by 3:53 a.m. The bill was already in the air. The first problem was already waiting on the data link. The ISR feed from the MQ-9 showed where the Fateh 110 launchers had been at the moment of launch. But the IRGC crew had been relocating for 12 minutes by the time the Rage flight got airborne. The coordinates Rage 01 was carrying were already stale. In the United States Air Force, stale coordinates are a targeting problem, and the Strike Eagles sensor suite exists specifically to solve targeting problems in the dark over hostile territory with something trying to eliminate you while you work. In 30 seconds, that pod was about to find a vehicle whose crew had no idea they were being watched because a warm engine doesn't know it is supposed to be hidden. That is because the Sniper Advanced Targeting Pod under Rage 01's fuselage sees heat, not light. But there was another problem. At 20 miles of standoff, the sniper pod can see that something is warm, but it cannot tell you whether it is the Fateh 110 or a civilian truck. You cannot just drop a 250-pound bomb on a heat bloom and hope you guessed right. That is how war gets a headline nobody wants. Positive identification means closing the range, and closing the range means flying toward whatever air defense is protecting those launchers. One useful piece of data arrived from the orbiting MQ-9, which had tracked the Fateh 110's initial movement for 3 minutes before losing them behind a ridgeline. That gave the weapons systems officer a search corridor, not the full 6-mile circle, but a narrow wedge pointing northeast toward a known tunnel complex in the coastal hills. The problem got smaller, but the solution still required getting dangerously close. Somewhere on the Iranian coast, an IRGC crew was racing to hide the launchers that had just shot at the base. They had a tunnel entrance 4 kilometers north and a head start measured in miles. The sniper pod you see here on Rage 01 could see in the dark, and the crew in the back seat had 92 very personal reasons to find them before they disappeared underground. Rage flight crossed the Iranian coastline at 25,000 feet just after 4:10 a.m. local time. The combined US-Israeli campaign had degraded Iranian air defenses by roughly 90%, eliminating some 200 systems in the first week. But 90% degraded does not mean 100% gone, and the 10% that survived was the 10% that had been smart enough to hide. If you look here, you will see something the first week of strikes could not fix. The Tor M1, NATO designation SA-15 Gauntlet, is a completely self-contained mobile surface-to-air missile system where each vehicle carries its own search radar, tracking radar, and 8 ready-to-fire missiles on a single armored chassis. No external radar van, no command post, no link to exploit. The system has a 12-kilometer engagement range and was specifically designed to protect mobile missile launchers during relocation. Think of it as a Ring doorbell camera that also has a shotgun mounted to it. It sees you, it identifies you, and it shoots you all from the same box on the porch. No wires to cut, no separate alarm panel to find, and you don't know it's there until the red light is already blinking at you. Right now, one of these was sitting between Rage flight and the Fateh launchers. If the weapons systems officer descended for positive identification without dealing with the Tor first, the surface-to-air missile would put a missile into his aircraft before the sniper pod finished focusing. At 4:12, a.m., Rage 01's weapon systems officer picked up a 3-second burst on the ALR-56M radar warning receiver. Think of it as a smoke detector that tells you exactly what kind of fire is burning and precisely where it started. The frequency matched the TOR-M1 search radar in scan mode before the signal vanished into silence. The Strike Eagles limitation here is straightforward. There is no AGM-88 harm on these jets. If Rage flight had been Growlers or Wild Weasel F-16 aircraft, that 3-second blink would have been all the F-15E needed to take out that TOR. But Strike Eagles carry bombs and targeting pods, not radar jamming pods. The only way to take out the TOR is to find its exact GPS position and put a weapon on it. The weapon systems officer needed 5 to 8 seconds of continuous TOR emission to build a targeting solution. The TOR commander was giving him exactly 3. Below Rage flight, the TOR-M1 commander watched his own scope in short pulses. 4 American contacts at 25,000 feet were heading inland toward the launchers he was assigned to protect. His orders were simple: keep the launchers alive until they reach the tunnel complex. The tunnel entrance was 3 minutes of driving away. Going active with fire control radar would probably get him wiped off the map in under 60 seconds. Staying dark meant the launchers had 0 air defense coverage for those 3 minutes. Either way, somebody was losing hardware tonight. The TOR commander had 2 options: stay dark and watch the launchers he was assigned to protect get erased from 15,000 feet, then explain to his superior why he held fire while it happened. Or go active, take his shot, and hand the American Weapons Systems officer a GPS coordinate precise enough to read on a license plate. Rage 0. One's pilot made the call. He pushed the nose down from 25,000 feet toward 15,000 feet, closing the slant range toward the TOR search area. Not an attack run, a deliberate provocation. The TOR's commander scope would show an American fighter descending straight toward his launchers. If the TOR stayed dark, the weapons systems officer would reach sniper pod resolution and prosecute the launchers without ever dealing with the air defense. If the TOR went active, its fire control radar would go continuous, and the APG-82 radar would finally get its 8 seconds. Checkmate in 2 moves. The TOR either watches the launchers get destroyed from above, or reveals its own position, trying to save them. The TOR commander chose to fight. He went active. Full fire control track, continuous emission. The ALR-56M screamed in Rage 01's cockpit, loud enough to make the pilot flinch. The weapons systems officer was already working the APG-82 in passive mode, triangulating across for 6 seconds of solid signal until the GPS solution locked on the second pass. Here is what the TOR commander handed over when he went continuous. The APG-82's 1,000 transmit-receive modules can flip from broadcasting into pure absorption mode, soaking up enemy emissions and triangulating the source to a GPS coordinate precise enough to put a bomb on. Think of it as finding your teenager's exact room by listening for their TikTok audio. You cannot hear it if they stay quiet. The moment the TOR committed to a continuous fire control track, the weapons systems officer had his address. He designated the TOR's position and released a GBU-39 small-diameter bomb off the wing rack at 16,000 feet, beginning a silent glide toward the last transmission that vehicle would ever make. But the TOR was fast. One missile came off the rail before the small-diameter bomb could arrive, screaming toward Rage 01 at Mach 2.5 from 12 kilometers out. The pilot had 4 seconds of warning on the AH-64 before things got extremely squirrely. Rage. 01's pilot broke hard, left at 6 Gs. The kind of turn where your vision tunnels grey at the edges and your G-suit inflates to keep you conscious. Chaff dispensers cycled automatically, spitting aluminum confetti into the slipstream. The Tor's missile tracked the chaff plume for 1 critical second, and that single second was enough for the pilot to pull below the missile's minimum engagement altitude. At 800 feet above the desert floor, the seeker lost its look-down angle and the missile screamed overhead. The weapons systems officer later claimed he could hear it, probably exaggerating. 7 seconds after the Tor fired, the GBU-39 arrived at the coordinates the weapons systems officer had locked. GPS guidance does not care about radar modes or countermeasures. It knows where the vehicle was standing when the solution was built. A $40,000 glide bomb just erased a $25 million air defense system. Your tax dollars working overtime tonight. The road to the launchers was now open. Rage flight descended to 15,000 feet, but the sniper pod's resolution sharpened immediately. What had been ambiguous heat blobs at 25,000 feet became crisp vehicle outlines on the weapons systems officer's infrared display. He swept the search corridor the MQ-9 had defined, working the pod east to west across 30 seconds of methodical scanning before finding exactly what he was looking for. 2 vehicles, with engines still glowing hot on infrared, parked nose to tail in a wadi 1 kilometer short of the tunnel entrance. The Fateh 313 launch canisters were still mounted on the rails. The IRGC crew had not had time to unload before parking. The weapons systems officer zoomed the sniper pod to maximum magnification, confirmed the launcher signatures, and knew with absolute certainty he was looking at the launchers that had hit Camp Buehring. He designated the lead launcher, confirmed GPS lock, and released. 12 seconds of flight, no motor, no exhaust plume, no warning. The warhead detonated at the junction of the launch rail and the truck chassis, whitening the targeting pod's infrared camera for 2 full seconds. When the image returned, the launcher was burning scrap in the wadi. What erased it? The GBU-39 small diameter bomb. Diamond-shaped folding wings that deploy on release, GPS guidance, 60 nautical miles of unpowered glide range from altitude. A single F-15E carries 8 of them. The IRGC crew had a $30 million launcher. The thing that ended, it cost $40,000 and made no sound on the way down. Rage 02 rolled in on the second launcher with the bigger tool, a GBU-31 Joint Direct Attack munition weighing 2,000 pounds. Its tail kit adjusts 4 fins 10 times per second through 30 seconds of silent freefall, steering itself onto a GPS coordinate with a margin of error measured in meters. The weapon hit the truck chassis and erased everything within 50 meters. The launchers were scrap. The Tor was scrap. Rage flight turned south toward the coast, and the IRGC naval compound that had planned the whole thing, the building where the battery commander had gotten his 3 seconds of celebration before ordering his crew to run. Rage flight rolled in. 4 GBU-31 bombs dropped in sequence across 30 seconds. The first hit the command building, folding inward the room where the battery commander had received his Camp Buehring confirmation just 90 minutes before. The second struck the communications center. The third punched through the half-moon concrete roof of the fast attack boat shelter and detonated inside, where the overpressure had nowhere to go. The walls blew outward and the roof pancaked down onto the boats like a fist closing. The fourth hit the fuel depot and sent a column of black smoke rising through the morning air, twin to the one still hanging over Camp Buehring, 350 miles north. The IRGC battery commander, who ordered the Camp Buehring strike, had been driving north for 60 minutes when the news found him on a militia radio frequency. His launchers, his Tor escort, his command compound, all gone in under 20 minutes of American flight time. He had celebrated for 3 seconds after Camp Buehring, and the Air Force's answer had taken slightly longer. But unlike his attack, they left nothing standing.